You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, November 27th. We are fresh off of a nice little break, nice little Thanksgiving, nice little 49ers win. Joining me to talk all about it today on a Monday is Weston. How you doing today, Weston? Did you enjoy the break?
I sure did. Happy Victory Monday, Steph. I hope you,
Yes.
your family, everyone you care about and that's close to you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm eager to talk about this evening because it was a weird game, a great game to watch, right? Don't get me wrong, a W, but I think they just had like ebbs and flows, and I'm always curious as to who piqued your interest from a performance standpoint, and certainly from the listener's perspective as well.
Yeah, well, as always in a win, it's a lot easier to think about some players that stood out, and so I'm looking forward to talking about that in a bit. But first, we'll talk about the game as a whole from Thursday. And you were mentioning ebbs and flows. So what do you mean about the ebbs and flows? Did this game not really do it for you? Or did you have some moments you were sweating a little bit?
Yeah. I definitely had moments where I was sweating. I'm just going to call it what it is. Mainly the third quarter of this game. And pre-kickoff, of course, because it's the Seahawks. I think on paper leading up to this week, I think the 49ers are a far superior team than the Seattle Seahawks on paper, but this is still your division rival. Nobody wants to beat the 49ers more than Pete Carroll does. Like, a Thursday night game, right? Holiday game, like so many things to mix in that you're worried about it. And I thought, hey, listen, fantastic start to the game. Could not have gone better going into the half up 24-3. But then it just feels like they hit these points in the game where they just stall. Like they just stall out. And it wasn't the defense, right? I mean, yeah, the defense gave up 10 points, but not really. 7 of them were off of a pick six, right? So like they still balled and played well, but it's just like, this is what scares me about the go forward, is because you have a good team. Seattle's still a good football team, and you have your foot on their throat, but you're afraid to push down, right? Or you're not pushing down and choking them out and ending the game when the game should have been ended. And because of that, up until the Purdy Ayuk touchdown, everybody was sweating a little bit. I don't care who you are. That game was not in the bag. It wasn't feeling like that. So for me, it was just like why'd you got me out of that in the doldrums of how I was feeling, to start the game. You got me elated. Like, why'd you drop me back in that bucket?
You know what I think it is, though? I don't think any other game really feels like that as much as it does against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Because in Seattle in particular, because we know too well like how those games go. We have so much trauma from the years of Pete Carroll and Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson and all of those years that, hey, we felt great going into a number of those games. And yet we know what happened in those games, right? So I think it's just that worry is always going to be there when you're playing the Seahawks, especially in Seattle. And I hear you. I think there were moments in which the momentum seemed to shift. And I was thinking to myself, if this was any other stadium against like any other team, I don't think the momentum shift would have felt that great if it weren't the Seahawks in Seattle. Like, just to continue making that point. Like, I think it's just because of that. I mean, it was the pick six that really turned the game on its head, or at least that's what it felt like in the moment. And then the 49ers punt, like immediately after that, then the Seahawks get a field goal and you're like, oh, like this could be close. But at the same time, there was no point in which I felt the Seahawks on offense could do anything to save their freaking lives. Like, they could not. And that has been the story of Geno Smith against this 49ers defense. So they haven't figured out to a T. They have these receivers figured out to a T, it seems like. And I feel great about that. Like, I think that's what kept them hanging on, right? The 49ers. Like, that's what. So, yeah, there were some worrisome moments there, but I don't think it's as bad as it felt. Or sorry, it felt a lot worse than it actually was for us.
For sure. And it's Russell Wilson PTSD, right? Like, let's call it what it is. And it's because I've watched a number of games over a period of years where the 49ers walking into the fourth quarter up 2 scores feel like they got this game in the bag. And then Russell Wilson looks like he doesn't know how to play football for 3 quarters and then comes up and lights you up for 3 touchdowns and 200 yards in the fourth quarter, right? Like, we've seen that story play out. And I think my brain just fooled me and was like, wait a minute. Like, expecting Russell Wilson to come out in the fourth quarter wearing a Seahawk uniform, you know what I mean? Versus like what was actually going on in the lifeless offense of the Seattle Seahawks under, Geno Smith for the majority of this game.
Yeah, the Russell Wilson magic is definitely still there as the Broncos are now seen. But yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson isn't walking through that door for the Seahawks, and it's Geno Smith, and he is for sure a downgrade, especially this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
it just seems like some of what happened last year is kind of caught up with them on offense, and even on defense. Like, it was early in the game, and I think it was Bobby Wagner giving the defense like a pep talk, right? Like, holy, like we cracked them, and
Yeah.
early in the game, right? So they couldn't recover after that. So I feel great about the win. I think there were a couple of things that the team improved on against the Seahawks that I had kind of been hoping they would. Third down efficiency was one of the things that they did improve a little bit. I still would like to see that to improve. They were 5 of 11 on third downs against the Seahawks, and don't ask me what percentage that is right now because I'm not good at math, but it is slightly better than it was the previous week. And in the red zone, especially, is where they improved. They were 3 of 4. So, and penalties, only 3 penalties. So,
Yeah.
and missed tackles. I think like about less missed tackles are about the same as before. So, some things to feel good about. Some things that I think can carry. They're building off of each game at this point to that deep playoff run, right? So like every game is important. You got to be able to stack your days, stack your games. And I feel like the 49ers, since the bye week, have been doing that.
Yep. Well, we've said all season long, this was the stretch, right? That was going to tell you what this team really is. And so far, so good, right? Coming out of the bye week, with 3 consecutive W's. You were mentioning the third down, I think, on our last show about you were referencing third down efficiency as it related to the offense. I was referencing third down efficiency as it was related to the defense and improvement in this game on that slate as well, where there was, they were 3 for 11. So good news is the 49ers defense was, listen, the defense was really good in this game. Just really stout, really, like you said, very few missed tackles. They were very rarely out of position. Like the windows were not there. Like even when their receivers were making catches, the vast majority of them were contested catches. They had a DB all over them. Like all three levels on the defense, like look really, really, really good. But I'm taking into account like who they were looking good against versus, hey, what does this Sunday bring? And what is round 2? Because, I think one of the things that we can talk about all day was just how Tyler Lockett, non-factor in this game. DK Metcalf, non-factor in this game. And Tyler Lockett's the assassin. He's the killer, right? Like, he's the guy who gets in the back of the end zone, somehow touches his 2 feet down. You're like, what? Like, how did he even get there in the first place? And, all bodes well. Building confidence, go forward.
Yeah, I think so too. And, say what you want about the Seahawks this season. Like, I think that was a big win just to get that like Seahawks monkey off your back. At least just like the feeling, especially like on Thanksgiving Day, because I don't know if it meant as much to the players who were playing this game because none of them were there in 2014 and had to witness Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman eating turkey on the 49ers field. But boy, this one felt good for that reason alone. I think for 49er fans, like I needed to be like avenged. Is that the right word? Avenged?
Yeah.
Yeah, I needed to be avenged. And it made it that much sweeter. I could enjoy the family time. And you sure as hell, I stayed up late to watch, the 49ers on the Seahawks field. Dinky table. Very small table. Like if you look at the screen grab of Sherman and Russell Wilson, they had a big, regular size table for the big turkey too. I mean, they had
sitting down to eat.
Yeah, they had like one of those little cocktail tables.
Yeah, I know.
And what I did like about the 49ers, like they brought out like all the main dudes out
Everyone.
there. I loved that because like I was kind of wondering, like, I wonder what two players, they would have there. But I like the fact that they brought in all those guys because all those guys contributed to the win in their own way. And I truly feel like the 49ers are like that kind of team that's like, no, there isn't one guy that's like greater than the other. Like it's truly like a team sport. And they wouldn't have shocked me if one of the players said, "Hey, like, can we actually bring more guys on to do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So
I want to know who controls the production of it because, to your point, 2014, I feel like we rolled out the red carpet at our stadium for whoever won that game, right? And this felt like standing room only. You know what I mean? Like it was just like bootleg, but I didn't care. I did not care.
I didn't care. Yeah.
I care in hindsight. In the moment, I was like, I cannot wait to watch this turkey be consumed on that football field. That is all I cared about at that moment in time.
Well, Weston, let's not bury the lead any longer. I mean, let's talk about some of the guys from that Week 12 game against the Seahawks who made the win what it was, like who had one of the best performances of the day on Thursday. I'm going to let you go first, as I most often do. So who do you have? Who do you want to nominate?
I'm coming out of the gate with Charvarius Ward. Mooney Ward. I mean, just one heck of a performance against. Listen, there are moments where I think Mooney Ward is overhyped, right? Due to contract and certain things, and there are times where I just like he to me looks a little lost in coverage from time to time, right? Like, but this game and the magnitude of it from a fan's perspective, right? And long-term fans, like he took DK Metcalf out of this game. So he had, I would say, 2 near interceptions, 3 passes to PBUs. He was targeted 10 times, gave up 4 catches for I don't even know, 40 something yards, maybe like that. But when he was truly following DK around the field, what was it? 1 catch, 15 yards
14,
for, a premier wide receiver in the National Football League. Like that's what a number 1 corner is supposed to do. And what expectations are of Mooney Ward, especially when we tout that the defensive backfield is the weak link on this defense, right? They did not look like that at all. And I'm lumping them all in. But for right now, we're talking about Mooney Ward. But in my opinion, that was his best game as a San Francisco 49er that I have seen.
I think so too. And he's had a number of good games, in particular, like against the Seahawks, against DK, which is why I think, Kyle, and I believe he said Kyle and John wanted him, like they brought up the idea of him following Metcalf around. And I think that's why, right? Like they saw what he was able to do in past performances against him and thought to themselves, man, like let's try to have that for an entire game, like just follow him around. And it definitely worked because you saw how many times like Geno Smith early in the game tried to target at him, and it suddenly felt like a bad idea. Like after like 2 very close picks early in the game, I think, Geno thought to himself, yeah, let me not throw in his coverage. I was actually surprised to see that PFF said he was targeted 10 times. Like I don't
recall when those targets happened.
That doesn't strike me as being true, but who knows? Maybe I'm missing something. By the way, I did put out a video of all of Charvarius Ward's snaps against DK Metcalf on my channel, cut up the all 22, so you guys could see his performance after this live, of course. Don't leave us just yet.
Yeah, of course.
But it is on my channel, and it is a very impressive performance indeed, and one that I do hope carries on into, maybe the next game too, in the game after that, right? So, yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Mooney Ward, but I also love what I'm seeing from the other corner, Ambry Thomas. And who would have thought that we would be saying his name and nominating him for 49K Player of the Week in week 12? Ambry Thomas. Like who would have predicted that? I would have thought you were crazy if you told me that, like, some weeks ago. I didn't want anything to do with Ambry Thomas out on the field. I'll be honest. I'm gonna eat my words. I'm happy to do it. Ambry Thomas, I owe you an apology. I wasn't familiar with your game because he has been putting on a clinic these last few weeks. All right. He was targeted 4 times, allowed 2 catches for just 16 yards. He had the interception, a pass breakup. He allowed just a 20.8 passer rating in his coverage on Thursday. I think that was Ambry Thomas's best game in the NFL, period. Like since he's joined the league, since he's been a Niner, all of it. And I want to see more. He's definitely stepped up. And again, I want to see more this week against the Eagles if he could do that. And I'm not nominating him. I don't know if you will, Weston. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I just want to say an honorable mention from me to Diamador Lenore as well, because his flexibility and his ability to just pretty much seamlessly start playing at the nickel spot has been what has allowed, I think, the defense to look just a little bit better because you're not having Isaiah Oliver out there. And so credit to Lenore, but my nominee is Ambry Thomas.
So you are nominating him?
Ambry Thomas, yeah. I am.
Oh, okay. Who was your honorable mention then? Demo? Is that what you were saying was honorable mention?
Lenore.
Okay.
I'm gonna give him a mention. Yeah.
Yeah, Ambry Thomas is on this list for me because what we were just talking about, which are various word and following him around, following your number one, that only works if your other corner is solid as well. Otherwise, you have to split the field. You take this half, I take this half, and we scheme accordingly, right? Like who needs more help, who needs support. But you start having your number one follow their number one, you're going to see a lot more man, right? You're going to see zone underneath, but he's going to be running with them. But it only works if the other corner is capable as well. And for the last 2 weeks, Ambry Thomas has looked very capable. What I loved about was like his interception. It just like he battled for it, like on the sideline, and he's only in that spot because of good coverage. It's not a deflected pass that just falls in his lap or a complete miscue by the quarterback. Like he had to go get that football, and he was able to go get it because he was, what do they do? He was straps on Lockett at that moment in time. I wanted to slap the announcers and like, I don't think Lockett's been targeted yet in the first half. I was like, au contraire, he certainly was. Just Ambry Thomas is out here picking people off, you know what I mean, mugging them. But no, I love it. I love that we're starting this out with your 2 corners, right? We talked about again weak link on the defense, and here we go singing praises about these individuals. I could not. Ambry Thomas was on my list too. So if you weren't saying it, he was getting mentioned later.
Who you want to nominate now?
I'm just fired up. I'm staying on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going Javon Hargrave. I like that. Again, 3 pressures, a hurry, 1.5 sacks. Got it. This is not about the stat column for me. This is the eye test and just collapsing that pocket. Yeah. And if he can continue to like the production we saw from Arik Armstead out of the Tampa Bay game, obviously not statistically the same production, but the same result in the sense of like you were taking away the step up ability of that quarterback and you are forcing him to step outside to find a comfort zone to release the ball. And, oh, by the way, number 97 is just hanging out there. Number 92 is just hanging out on the other side. Like having this type of production from Hargrave and from Armstead, if that is a repeatable model go forward for them, these ends are going to eat all day. And it's going to be a quarterback nightmare because Geno doesn't lack mobility, right? And we always get knocked for how we play against quarterbacks that have even an inkling of mobility and the ability to step up. Well, stepping up and taking off for 10 yards when nobody's in, becomes really hard when it's not really stepping up. It's stepping out to then step up and you're stepping in front of people. So this could be a piece of the cure against how we fare against more mobile quarterbacks if they continue to produce. So again, 1.5 sacks, still nothing to sneeze at from your defensive tackle, right? I'd call that production. The other stats might not look as good, but can't help but watch the film and say, holy God, like he was wreaking havoc on the interior of that offensive line throughout the game.
And this is exactly the type of impact that we were expecting from Javon Hargrave from the beginning of the season, right? Like it just, along with the rest of the defensive line, it was just kind of lull, in the first half of the season. And then after the bye week, after, Chase Young gets added to the mix, I mean, he's proven himself to be everything that the 49ers paid him to be, right? And what we all expected him to be. So I think it's great. It's great to see. I hope it continues, right? Like he has a big test this week against Jason Kelsey. So that should be a hell of a battle. And I'm looking forward to it though. I mean, he's been wreaking havoc for sure these last few weeks, and it has helped a ton. As is Eric Armstead, right? Like not one of my nominees, but like just an honorable mention for him as well. So Javon Hargrave wasn't on my list, but I am glad you mentioned him because he did have a great game on Thursday. Look, I'm like, should I just go one more defensive player?
You should.
And
We're on this side of the ball. We'll get to the other side.
We might as well. All right, Nick Bosa. I mean, he had a crazy game. We're just talking about how Javon Hargrave helps the edges out. Definitely helping out Nick Bosa, as is, other counterpart Chase Young has benefited from it too, and they're benefiting off of each other. 9 pressures. PFF credited him with 3 sacks, maybe because PFF doesn't credit half sacks. So there was a few sacks where it seemed like the entire defensive line collectively got to Geno Smith.
Who was on the bottom of the pile got the half sack.
Exactly. Right? Who will ever know? But ESPN had him with 2 sacks. Whether it was 2 sacks or 3, it was a hell of a game from Nick Bosa. He also had 2 quarterback hits, 4 hurries. Again, this is just the type of performance we've come to know and expect from Nick Bosa, right? And I feel like it's all starting to come together for him and the rest of the defensive line too. So he was a big part of bringing that pressure to Geno Smith, making him a little uneasy. So got to give credit to my guy, Nick Bosa, and staying on his diet, even in the face of the Thanksgiving holidays, even in the face of a turkey in front of him, he stayed true to his diet. No carbs, only meat.
No carbs after a game.
Turkey is a meat, so I was a little confused by that, but whatever, Nick. We'll let it
It's your world, bro. We just live in it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that comment was priceless. And yes, and yes to everything you're saying about Nick. Like he's, the year didn't start so well in the finish column for him, right? Like getting home, and we know all about leading the NFL in pressures, et cetera. And we talked tirelessly about like, okay, at this point, pressures don't even matter anymore. Like you got to get home. Like you got to change the game. You got to disrupt the game. And he is. And he's doing it in bunches. And when he's not getting home, gosh darn, he's getting really close where he's affecting more and more plays. And, hopefully this is Nick getting hot this year at the right time of the season, as needed for the 49ers to get right. So, yeah, I mean, so it's not the first time we've mentioned Nick. It won't be the last time we mention him in these conversations, but he had a stellar game with a stellar cameo at the turkey eating fest at Lumen Field.
Love it.
You ready to go to the other side of the ball now?
Let's do it. Yep.
Yeah, I think that let me just make sure. I like to have a litany of names. All right. I'm gonna go with Debo. And I'll tell you why. Statistically, like not his best game, but for me, his like most diverse game of the year. And what I mean by that, 7 catches, 79 yards. Yeah, he only had 15 yards rushing, but he found the end zone for the first score of the game. And we hadn't seen that version of Debo in a little while. If you're kind of following here, right? It's like he's either the highest paid decoy in the NFL, which is great, right? That's part of the allure is you have to account for him, etc. Or like, but that amount of touches, right? So he's 11 touches, right? 7 catches, 4 carries. Like that's the number 10 plus that I think you need to see how many times 19 needs to touch the ball in all different scenarios because he's a tone setter. He's physical, right? Like he's going to take defensive backs' wills when he wants to go, when he's running in the open field. And we keep talking about the stretch of this schedule in the back half and get into the playoffs. Like that's going to matter. That's going to dictate who, like I know Ayuk's doing all the flashy stuff and he's coming into his own, but that's not truly 49er brand football the way that this team is won. Like, yes, you still want him to do it, but Debo having a significant impact is going to be really crucial to the 49ers success go forward. And this is the first game in a while that I've seen like the best of both worlds, involved in the passing game, certainly significant and impactful in the running game. And, that's the 2021 Debo, right? Like that's the 2020, that's the Debo that got paid oodles of money. And you can argue single-handedly carried us to an NFC championship game. That's the guy that I think we were starting to see some glimpses of this past week.
Yeah, and like I actually was thinking about this before we went live here because I was live with Ashley Ariana, and we talked about Debo, and I was thinking to myself, this is maybe one of the first times in a while that I don't feel like the 49ers have been relying on yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Like they've kind of opened up this more down the field attack with Brandon Ayuk, sprinkle a little bit of George Kittle, but Purdy's gotten more comfortable throwing the ball a little more down the field, and they don't need to necessarily rely on Debo Samuel's yards after the catch ability. I think in 2022 he finished the season with a little over 500 yards after the catch, which is crazy. I think right now he's nowhere near sniffing that, right? So it shows a bit of a flip in how the offense is being played, how Debo is being used. And I know he was hurt for a few games.
Yep.
But it's still nice to have that in their back pocket because I agree. I think in the second half of the season, it's when you really want to bring out the bully ball and you really want to punch teams in the mouth. And I think the type of tone setter that Debo is, that's how you do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to see a little bit more of that. He still has involvement in the rushing here and there. That's how he scored his touchdown. But I think they're not as much using it as they have in the past. And I kind of like that because again, like it's always there. You just never know when they're going to use it or when they feel like they could. It's just that extra little oomph that they can have out there if they want.
And you're right. 2021 was out of pure necessity. Like they had no other choice but to work him because it was working and nobody can stop it. Even when they knew it was coming, it was like a different life force he took on. They don't have to. But you mentioned a couple things like Brock getting more comfortable with the deep ball, us clearly now throwing the ball outside the numbers where for so long everything was over the middle of the field. And so you stretch little by little by little by little. But guess where all that open space is soon going to be? It's going to be in the middle of the football field. And you're going to start dragging 19 across and you're going to give him the ball with a head of steam with 5 or 6 yards separation. That's the Debo. I can't wait to see that version of 19 because we know what that
I think
like.
We'll see it. I think we'll see it because there's going to be a game where that's going to match up perfect. Like they're not going to be expecting it. Like,
nope.
You have it in your back pocket. It could happen as soon as, this game against the Eagles coming up, right? So we'll see. But definitely Debo Samuel's like that secret weapon, that secret Swiss Army knife that's not so much a secret, but you just never know. Like last year, it was kind of predictable because of what they had done in 2021. Now it's not as predictable, and now it's just this extra thing, this bonus thing they can do whenever they want. So,
and you don't know where it's
I like it.
Is it a jet sweep? Is he in the backfield? Is it a bubble screen? Like you have no idea because there's not a lot of tape on it in 2023. So you love it, bodes well because you're going to keep them guessing.
But also part of the reason that teams don't really know who's going to get the ball, what is it going to be, is because of my next nominee, Christian McCaffrey. We've done a great job at
Perfect
like
segue.
segueing to
Perfect
the
segue.
next one. I like this. Maybe we should do that more often, Okay, so Christian McCaffrey, 19 carries, 114 yards, 2 tutties. I think it was his most efficient day running the ball since week 1.
Yep.
He had 6 yards per carry on Thursday. He accounted for 8 first downs. He also had 5 catches, 27 yards. That's the second week in a row he's had exactly 5 catches and 27 yards. So I thought that was funny. 69 yards after contact in his rushes, his highest total since week 2. So I think Christian McCaffrey is coming back to form too, because I think during the losses, maybe even a game after that, people were like, what's happening with McCaffrey? Like, he's not as efficient as he was before to start the season. And it's because that darn Kyle Shanahan is running him to the ground. And you see what he does, and you kind of wonder why he gets as many carries as he does. There's no one like Christian McCaffrey. He's literally like a cyborg, man. He was getting screwed. His screws came a little loose. They had to, tighten him up on the sideline. He's a robot. All right. That's Christian McCaffrey. So definitely have to give him his props. It seems like he's also getting into some real nice rhythm, in the second half of this season here. So I hope it keeps up, because they'll definitely need that in December and beyond.
Absolutely. Like, you can't dispute this any which way. I mean, he had a phenomenal game. Got in the end zone twice. I think one of my favorites was the video like after the game. I don't know if it was the next day or like later that night, just with like the blood and the bruises.
Oh,
like,
dude,
this man is like a tough guy, like my God,
he was beat up,
dude. Like, and he just keeps coming back, right? I mean, that's part of the game, but certainly part of the position for sure. And I know we criticize. What I loved about this game, you talked about efficiency, is it didn't seem like a struggle, right? Like he was just getting the yards, like we've seen him have, 100 plus yard games, 90 plus yard rushing games, but it just like had to work for it. Every carry was just like difficult, and it was all him getting the extra 2 or 3 yards falling forward. It just felt like his body, although the videos would say otherwise, like watching it didn't feel like he took as big of a beating as you've seen him in some games. And we already know he goes, this offense is going to go with it. Like, we know that and this is what we want to see. This is what we didn't see in the 3 consecutive losses, was back to the running game. And it's really hard to pull him off the field because he's your best running back. He's arguably could be your top 2 wide receiver on this team. And he might be the most efficient pass blocker on the team as well. Like, how do you can't justifiably, in a league where you have to go week to week, you can't even be looking at the Super Bowl. That's what fans do, right? That's not what teams do. They go week to week because anything can change on a dime. How do you take literally your best offensive player off the field? Like, it's a really hard proposition. So good news is he gets a nice little 10-day rest before he's got to lace him up again.
And he's now, starting a new streak of consecutive games with a touchdown, right? He's starting back from 0. So now he's at 2 games. But, what was notable about the game on Thursday is he became the 49ers single season rushing touchdown leader. He has 11 rushing touchdowns on the season. So that's pretty crazy to think, because the 49ers have had some great running backs in their time, and in his second season with the team, like, he's able to accomplish that. So
I mean, Jerick McKinnon, I can't believe he didn't get over 11.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, but it is crazy to think in like how many games are left, right? And this guy's already sniffing 1,400 all-purpose yards. You know what I mean? And like again, the season is still very much underway. Like, he is just a true impact player.
All right, Weston, I have one more nominee, and
yeah, do it. I am.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Wow.
We checked I don't even have a curveball for you.
Wow. Well, you know what? You might think this next one's a curveball.
I can't wait. I get excited for these.
I was actually surprised you didn't take it before I did, because like you're always
know where you're going.
You're always in the special teams, realm, giving love to those guys. I got to give love to Mitch Wishnowsky.
Sure do.
Who would have thought? We've been giving love to Mitch Wishnowsky, but I definitely think he deserved it after what I thought was a great game on Thursday, and he's having a great season too. But I feel like this was one of the first games where you're kind of able to quantify it a little bit, because one of his crazy punts is what led to, was it on a punt? The one that DJ Dallas fumbled?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
punt.
okay. Yeah, so that one, when they showed the replay and they showed that thing like spinning like crazy, I was like, wow, like this is what this dude's doing. And yeah, I mean, it makes it tough for any returner to kind of figure out what to do with that. A little bit of like DJ Dallas being a little silly there, like he stayed on the ground a
Yeah, I don't know
little
what
too
that was
long,
about.
but yeah, but I mean, credit to Mitch on that one. And I know we're nominating him for week 12, not for the full season, but I did want to mention this stat just because I was a little mind blown by it. 30.6% of his punts have fallen inside the opponent's 10-yard line. It's awesome. 13.9% have fallen inside the 5. So both of those lead the league. And that's crazy. He's also, I didn't know they did EPA for punters, but
Well, here
he's
we go.
apparently the second best punter in EPA per punt, I guess. So
Sounds
yeah,
fantastic. And
yeah, right. Like this is, analytics tell us Mitch Wishnowsky is a good punter. So I just wanted to nominate him this week because it did not go unnoticed.
Listen, we've been kind of talking about this all year, like sometimes jokingly, sometimes not. I mean, he's had a stellar season. You mentioned the percentages, right? 53% are in of his punts. So he's punted the ball 36 times this year. 19 of them have gone inside the 20-yard line. So inside the 10, inside the 5, that's bonuses, right? You're putting your the opposing team's offense in no man's land, but inside the 20 is better than where it starts with a touchback, right? So you're already doing your job there and making the field longer for the offense. It's just, I don't even like, that's got to be, I don't even know how to search punter stats like rankings, but like 53% inside the 20 of your punts, that has to lead the league. Like it just has to.
That's great.
Not this week, but was it last week where he gave up the big return? Was that against Tampa?
Yes.
Yeah, when he gave up the big return. But what I love about it is not only is he a punter, this man is aggressive.
Was
Like,
that on him though?
no.
Him?
Well, he aired it out, you know what I mean? Like, and they always talk about hang time and all that stuff, whatever. But the moral of that story is like, did you see him try? No, it didn't end well, but he's always trying to make a tackle. He's always trying to get in on the play. So, like, not only is this man doing his job, like he's just trying to stick his nose in the pile too, and I like that about him. But it was 3. We talked about inside the 20. There was another 3 that he did last week. Now, one of them led to
We're talking about week 12, Weston,
I know.
He did good in week 12.
He did. He's great. I'm happy he's our punter.
He wasn't nominated last week, all right?
No. Week 12, he is here.
Maybe for a reason. All right. So week 12, we have our candidates for 49K Player of the Week: Mooney Ward, Ambry Thomas, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and Mitch Wishnowsky. So do us a favor, and if you're watching live with us, make sure you vote for one of these players, and we will tally those up and tell you shortly who is the 49K Player of the Week for week 12. In the meantime, Weston and I, actually, Weston, before I go into players I want to put on notice,
yep,
I did have a couple more honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes along with special teams. Daryl Luter Jr. and Ronnie Bell, 2 rookies, making some nice plays in special teams, making their presence felt. All right. Ronnie Bell was the guy who came through after the fumble, and he was on and scooped it up, right?
Yep.
He scooped it up.
Yep.
And then he had another play, I believe, where he downed it. That was one of the other really good punts from Wishnowsky, where he downed it, and it was great field position, obviously, for the 49ers defense. And then Daryl Luter had a couple of nice plays too. If I
Yeah,
recall. Yeah.
and you are recalling accurately. I think what I'm so pumped about was just seeing Luter and like even Womack on the back of jerseys, right? Because you just haven't seen we've seen
Yeah.
none of Luter
Nice,
yet.
right?
We've seen some promising play from Womack, a little bit last year. I think for me, what makes it so important that you mentioned like the relevance on special teams is with the loss of George Odom, right? That's a big
Yeah.
special team loss. Like
Oh
he's
yeah.
forget the safety depth, like he's arguably your best special teams player right now, and you lose him to the torn bicep. So these young guys, that's how
Big
they're gonna
blow.
play onto the field. And you hope that they keep doing it, especially Luter and Womack. That was nice to see your draft pick like playing, right? One that we had so many high hopes on. And let's see who steps up in Odom's absence and keeps it going. But yeah, absolutely, honorable mention to those two young cats. Absolutely.
And I think it's also like really awesome to see because we know for good reason, like they're not getting their moments, on the field, on defense, on offense, right? For Ronnie Bell. And special teams is kind of their chance to make their mark any way they can. And they are doing a lot with that opportunity. So yeah, just wanted to credit those guys. And yeah, with the loss of George Odom, that's a big one for the special teams. And so guys like that gonna have to step up. So looking forward to seeing what they can do in upcoming weeks. But on that note, did you have any players that you wanted to put on notice, Weston?
Well, we're just talking week 12, right?
Yeah.
We're just talking week 12. I'm gonna go with the guards. I'm gonna go with Aaron Banks and John Feliciano. I just need more from you both out of the run game. That's it. Right? It can't just be run left, run off Trent. Like it can't. Good teams, one that we're facing this week, they're gonna take that away from you. Right? Defensive guys get played too. Just like to see, especially I think we've lost some effectiveness. You know how they run that toss that's really actually like not off tackle, it's like off guard, right? But they run it as a toss versus a straight
Mhm.
handoff. Like you need for that play to work, like you need solid and stable blocking from your guards, because most of the time one of them is pulling, right? So they need to make contact with somebody and rub them. But we've been saying it all year. I mean, Banks has been a pleasant surprise. I know he's just returning from injury, so I don't want to like kill him in his first action back after a little bit of an extended absence. But we knew this was going to be the Achilles heel, right? Is the interior of the offensive line, and it's still showing itself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would even go as far as saying, the pass blocking could be better from
Yeah.
those guys too. I mean, Aaron Banks, you said it. I mean, his first game, back from injury. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He gave up 2 pressures, 2 hurries. He also had a penalty for Feliciano, who I guess like I had some high hopes for Feliciano just because I think we were all kind of hoping he would be a lot better than Spencer Burford, given what Kyle Shanahan said about him. That like they were thinking of having him at right guard anyway before Aaron Banks got hurt. So I thought, okay, so he's probably going to look better than Spencer Burford, but he gave up 4 pressures and 4 hurries on Thursday, and he had a penalty of his own. So not great. Look, like if the 49ers decide to do the same thing at right guard they did last year, which was rotating the right guard, which is unheard of.
Did it a
I
whole
would,
season. I can't believe it.
yeah, I would welcome it if you can get the best out of both guys, right? Like
Yep.
it seemed like that is what happened last year. Maybe they can get some of that this year. I don't know, but it seems like Spencer Burford was practicing today. Today is like their bonus practice day, but he was on the field. So that would seem to indicate he's going to progress through this week and have a chance to be active on Sunday. Whether or not that means he's going to be starting, I don't know. But like I said, going forward, they're going to have the option of John Feliciano and Spencer Burford at the right guard spot. But that's a good one. For me, maybe I should have just segued into it like after we were just talking about the plethora of special teams. But I gotta go with Ray McCloud for a guy that I'm gonna put on notice, man. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, at some point, I kind of feel like it's just me, and I expect so much out of like our return guys, and I just eventually sour on guys, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just like in my head, they're not doing enough. But I looked at some of the stats, and like these last 2 weeks have been horrendous for Ray McCloud. Aside from the fumble that he had, because he did have a fumble. Who recovered that, by the way? Was that Ronnie Bell that recovered that? Who recovered
Probably.
that?
Let's see.
So that's another reason that I wanted to give the honorable mention to Ronnie Bell, because I think he did recover that. But anyway, so Ray McCloud, looking at punt returns, he had so last week against Tampa Bay, he had one return that just got 2 yards. 2 yards. And then this week, Thursday against the Seahawks, he had 3 returns, 10 total yards. That is 3.3 yards per punt return attempt. Not great, man. Like these last 2 games have just been like so forgettable. His worst games of the season, and I don't know why that is. He just seems like just the right amount of hesitant that like he just can't move forward and get some good yardage. So I think we haven't really noticed it because it's not one of those things you always notice is going to impact the game. And, the 49ers have won their last 2, but man, that does make a difference in like field position and all of that. So I really hope that McCloud has some better days ahead.
I think he will. It's funny because if you're talking about your return guy, it's usually never like a good thing, right? Like, is that the shining star of what's going on? That's probably not great. If talking about him negatively, it's definitely not great. And I agree, it's been lackluster. I think my expectations of any returner, because the 49ers haven't, in my opinion, haven't had a good one since they had Ted Ginn line up back there, at least somebody who was like a home run threat. And Ray is that. Like, he's a home run threat. We've seen him do it before. It's my expectation of a returner is like, don't give away the game. Don't be, and I hate to say this because I love the player, but don't be Kyle Williams. Like, you just can't find yourself in that same conversation. Don't be DJ Dallas last week, right? Like, and lose the fumble. Those are backbreakers, right? And now we're at the point of the season where if that is the one mistake that's made in the game, it could cost you the game. So I don't need him to return it to the house. I just need him to not fumble the football. Listen, if he does, it's great, but he just can't give the football back to the other team when your defense just got their offense off the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, obviously a touchdown would be a bonus, but don't just don't screw it up.
The legend formerly known as Richie James, is that the last return TD we've had?
Yeah. Did he have one?
He definitely had one. I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. Then that would have been the last one.
That's poor. That's real poor.
It's very poor. So like, the 49ers are in this, like, I don't know. If we can get someone as like dynamic as Ted Ginn, that'd be great. I was really hoping Ray Room would be that, but I don't know. It's like, it's not the end all be all for McCloud. I'm just putting them on notice.
Yeah, of course. So. Well, being on Steph's notice,
because he'll watch. He'll watch this.
Yeah.
He's gonna watch this clearly. So
come on, number 3, step it up.
He doesn't want to be on my bad list. So anyway, guys, continue to vote in the comments for these players listed up on the screen. If you haven't yet, Weston, do you have a vote for this week?
Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. All right. So I'll give a moment for people to give their last bit of comments here if we get any more. But Weston, what do you think about this matchup on Sunday? It didn't seem like you're feeling all too hot about this one going into it.
I'm just going to call it what it is, and I'll get crucified because I'm going to end up talking about it all week. I'm just not optimistic. Like, and that's not me soured on my own football team, because I think the San Francisco 49ers are top of the league in terms of who they are and who they trot out every week. But I've been saying it all week. Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in football. And you can sit here and tell me all you want that Well, they got weaknesses and they can be exposed and they can be taken advantage of. Yeah, so can every NFL team. That's why nobody finishes the season undefeated, right? Somebody found a weakness, something didn't go right, the ball didn't bounce in the right direction. Things happen. But the truth is, and we've seen it firsthand, 2 weeks in a row, Kansas City game, and then against Buffalo, like a team down 10 at half against that caliber of an opponent, every excuse to lay down and die and just move on to the next and get out of there injury free. And they just still somehow, some way find a way to win that game. I don't believe that if the 49ers are behind 10 points to that level of an opponent, I don't think they come back in the same vein that the Philadelphia Eagles do. That's just not the way the team's built. And point to the evidence that says we are, because it doesn't exist. Do I think the 49ers have a shot? You're damn right I do, right? I'm just not like, this is the toughest test. This is the toughest test of the season. You knew it since the schedule was released, and now all the excuses are out the window of we only lost in the NFC Championship because we lost our quarterback and yada, yada, yada. Like, all that's gone. Here we are, a 10-1 club, versus an 8-3 club rolling in. If you want the 1 seed, you have to go do your job, or you might as well or that hope is gone. I believe our team is capable. I believe we match up well in some capacity. My biggest fear is I do think their defensive line is going to eat our offensive line alive. And that's going to change the game. That's a game wrecker.
It could be. It very well could be. The one thing that the 49ers have an advantage of going into it is the fact that the 49ers have 3 days extra rest for whatever
Absolutely.
That's worth. And the Eagles defense just played 92 snaps.
And a lot the week before.
So they are dragging into this game. Now, whether or not that makes a difference in the actual outcome of the game and on the field, that is yet to be seen, right? Like, they could still put on a hell of a performance and defy all of what we just mentioned. But the 49ers have that advantage, and they better make the most of it that they can. We were just talking about Debo, right? Bully ball, someone who can punch you in the mouth, someone who can exhaust you for a full 4 quarters. And they got a number of guys on offense that can do that, right?
Absolutely.
So they're going to need that in this game. Now, another thing is it's a marathon to play the Eagles.
Yeah.
It is. You can't let your guard down at all, because as we've seen, even if you're up on this team, I mean, you can't let them back in the game. And I saw something today that said that Jalen Hurts passer rating is higher, but I think like 20 points or something like that higher when he's losing, when his team is losing, than when they're like tied or up in the game. Isn't that crazy?
Guy's a winner.
That's crazy.
He's just an absolute winner. Like, I hate the Philadelphia Eagles, but I can't hate Jalen Hurts because I respect everything that he does. The dude is just an absolute winner, and sometimes you're just wired that way. I'm starting to feel the same way about our own quarterback, mind you, by the way, before I get crucified. Guy's a gamer, he's going out there and playing, and there's, a couple years difference in experience. Why Jalen is probably where he is, but I can tell you this much. You just mentioned about the marathon versus a sprint. That third quarter shenanigans that we saw with Seattle, you do that against Philly, you can kiss that W goodbye. I don't care if you're up 10. I don't care if you're up 17. That is a team that will take advantage of everything. I think Philadelphia is prone to turn the ball over a little bit more this year than they have in the past, and that 49ers might be opportunistic around that. Where I'm concerned is I don't see the 49ers put up points after turnovers at all. Like, I don't like.
It's true.
Field goals ain't winning that game, Steph. You and I both know that, right? Like, they need to, and they're going to have to put up 30. They're going to have to put up at least 30 to win the game. And that's a tall order. But same to be said for Philadelphia, right? Like, I'm not just crucifying our 49ers. I can tell you that the Eagles are going to have to view us the same way. They're going to have to put up 30. They're going to have to get out ahead of the offense. They know what the back and forth is going to look like. I think the one thing that's pretty funny that's in our advantage is they actually never got to see the full game plan.
Yeah,
that
that's
we
true.
put out for the NFC Championship game. They didn't, because it was scrapped the minute Josh Johnson had to walk out onto that field, right? And then when he's gone and you got
Yeah.
a left-handed Purdy, like it's scrapped. Like, so you didn't get, I don't even know if we got through Kyle's first 24, you know what I mean, for
Yeah, I don't think we did.
that
Nope.
game. So trust me, there's going to be a different offensive game plan for the Eagles than what we have, you've seen consistently on tape this year, and it's been building up to this game. So, hey, maybe you catch them asleep or catch them off guard with something they just haven't seen all season, because they haven't actually played the scheme that you were looking to deploy against them in the previous season.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also different defensive coordinator for the Eagles this year as well. So I think that's where a lot of the differences come from for this team. It's mostly like their secondary is not as quote unquote good as it was last year. So I think Kyle could potentially, take advantage of that.
He's going to throw the
But
ball a lot, more than we
yeah,
want him to. I bet he's gonna air this ball out all game.
yeah. So that's what I worry about too,
Yep.
because when he gets throw, that's how you get into those easy 3 and outs. And
Yeah.
then suddenly you're punting
And
the ball back.
and suddenly you're
So
down 21-3, right? Because and
then
it's
you
just,
do have to
yeah,
pass.
football's just a funny game like that, Steph. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
I mean,
like you blink.
it's a chess match,
Yep.
it truly is. And so to go along with, what everyone else is saying about the Eagles, like, yeah, they have all these flaws and you could take advantage of this and that. All that is true. But their biggest strength is the fact that they can come from behind. They can win any way they need to against any type of opponent they need to in order to win. That is their greatest strength. And it is maybe the scariest strength of all. You cannot underestimate that. All right. So yeah, that's why I say it's going to be a marathon for the 49ers and one that they have to stay focused on all game. Like, I think because the 49ers have been waiting for this for so long, and they need it, I think, a little bit more than the Eagles do. I think they're going to be ready, and I'm hyping myself up. I want to be optimistic. So yeah, I think they have a fair shot to win this game. But yeah, clearly, obviously, we're going to talk about this game all week. It is at top of mind. But just to give our Week 12 one last bow, our Week 12 49K Player of the Week, as voted by you guys, is Christian McCaffrey. I voted Mooney Ward.
Okay.
But no one else voted for Mooney Ward. So I thought that was crazy. But Christian
Considering I
McCaffrey.
nominated him, right? And I didn't even vote
Yeah,
for
I mean, I would have nominated him too if you didn't. So yeah, we got those votes for McCaffrey, and yeah, a guy they're gonna need on Sunday, as of all the other guys we mentioned. So yeah, I mean, that's our show for today, Monday. Thank you so much for spending part of your Monday night evening with us. Definitely appreciate it. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, not just my channel, but Weston's as well. Weston, plug your channel real quick. Let everyone know where they can find your content.
Yeah, find it on YouTube at We're Talking Football, on Instagram, Twitter, WTF Pod NFL. We talk a lot about the NFL, but spend a lot of time partner up with Steph on her show and some others, really just kind of focusing the back half of this year on our team, the 49ers. So Steph, as always, I appreciate you letting me tag along for an hour on Monday where we can have a little bit of fun. And as always, it's go Niners. Don't let my talk of the Eagles sour any of that. It's always go Niners in this house.
Well, yeah, Monday is always a fun show. Can't wait for next Monday, and hopefully we'll be talking about yet another win for that one. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Monday night. Peace.